The cafe was busy on a Tuesday afternoon, filled with the usual mix of students on laptops, business people on phones, and tourists studying maps. Ethan Walsh sat alone at a corner table, his tailored charcoal suit drawing a few glances but nothing more. At 36, he'd learned to move through the world quietly, despite the fortune he'd built in real estate development. Today was his late wife's birthday. She'd been gone for 4 years, taken by an illness that all his money couldn't cure. Every year, on this day, he came to this small cafe, a place where they'd had their first date back when he was just starting out and she was a graduate student. He ordered the same thing she always had, a black coffee and a plate of fries. He never ate the fries. He just sat with them, remembering. He was lost in thought when a small voice broke through. "Excuse me, sir?" Ethan looked up. A woman stood beside his table, maybe in her late 20s, with blonde hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She wore jeans and a jacket that had seen better days. Her hand rested protectively on the shoulder of a little boy, probably 4 years old, with sandy blonde curls and wide, curious eyes. The child wore a jacket a size too big, likely a hand-me-down. "I'm so sorry to bother you," the woman said, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment. "But I noticed you haven't touched your fries, and my son is really hungry. I'm waiting for my paycheck to clear, and I only had enough cash for a water. Would you mind if we shared them? I'll pay you back. I promise. I just need to feed him something." The vulnerability in her voice, the obvious shame at having to ask, struck Ethan like a physical blow. He looked at the little boy, who was trying hard not to stare at the plate of fries. "Please sit," Ethan said, sliding the plate toward the empty seats across from him. "Take them all. I was just about to leave anyway." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm not usually in this situation. I just got laid off last week, and things are tight until I start my new job next Monday. I'm not someone who asks for handouts. You're someone making sure your son eats. There's no shame in that." The little boy climbed into the chair and looked at the fries with an expression of pure joy. "Mommy, can I really eat them?" "Yes, sweetheart. But what do you say to the nice man?" "Thank you, sir," the boy said solemnly, then immediately grabbed a fry and stuffed it in his mouth. The woman smiled, despite her obvious discomfort. "I'm Grace. This is my son, Oliver. And truly, I'll pay you back. If you give me your name and number, I'll send you the money as soon as I can." "That's not necessary," Ethan said. But something made him stay seated instead of leaving as he'd planned. Maybe it was the anniversary. Maybe it was how Oliver reminded him of the children he and his wife had planned to have someday. Maybe it was the fierce protective love he saw in Grace's eyes. "But I'd be happy to buy you both lunch. The real kind, not just fries." Grace shook her head firmly. "We can't accept that. This is already more than enough." "Mommy, I'm really hungry," Oliver whispered. Looking at the menu board behind the counter, Ethan saw Grace's face crumble just slightly before she composed herself. "I know, baby. The fries will help." Something in Ethan's chest tightened. His wife would have never let them leave hungry. She'd always seen people, really seen them, in a way his business world rarely allowed. He made a decision. "Look, I know we just met, but I was about to order food anyway. Please, let me do this. Consider it paying forward the kindness someone showed me once when I needed it." Grace studied him carefully, and Ethan could see her weighing pride against her son's hunger. Finally, she nodded. "Just something small. A sandwich, maybe? Nothing expensive." Ethan went to the counter and ordered 2 of everything on the menu that looked good, plus milk for Oliver and coffee for Grace. When he returned with the receipt, Grace's eyes widened. "It's too much." "I said, just a sandwich." They were having a special, Ethan lied smoothly. Everything was included. Kaliyea was working his way through the fries with single-minded determination. Between bites, he chattered away. "My daddy's in heaven. Mommy says he's watching over us. Do you have a family, sir?" Oliver, that's not polite, Grace said quickly. It's fine, Ethan said quietly. My wife is in heaven too. So no, I don't have a family anymore. It's just me. Oliver considered this seriously. That's sad. Everyone should have a family. Maybe you could share ours. We have lots of love even if we don't have lots of money. That's what Mommy always says. Grace looked mortified. Oliver, you can't just invite strangers to join our family. But Ethan smiled, the first real smile he'd had all day. That's a very generous offer, Oliver. Thank you. As they ate, Grace slowly relaxed. She told Ethan about her situation, how her husband had died in a construction accident 2 years ago, how she'd been working 2 jobs to make ends meet until one of them suddenly let her go, how she had a new job starting next week that paid better, but the gap between paychecks was brutal. I have some savings, she said, but Oliver needed new shoes for school, and then the car needed repairs. By the time I paid rent, there was almost nothing left. I've never had to ask a stranger for food before. I've never been that person. You're not that person, Ethan said firmly. You're a mother, making sure her child eats. There's a difference, still, Grace said. I want to pay you back for all of this once I get paid. Ethan pulled out his business card, something he rarely carried anymore. Tell you what, when you get your first paycheck, take whatever you would have paid me back and donate it to a food bank instead. Help the next family that finds themselves between paychecks. Grace took the card, then her eyes widened as she read it. Ethan Walsh, as in Walsh Development Corporation. You're that Ethan Walsh? Oliver looked up, confused. Is he famous, Mommy? He's very successful, honey, Grace said, her face flushing red. Oh my God, I asked a billionaire if I could share his fries. I'm so embarrassed. Don't be, Ethan said. Money doesn't make someone more or less deserving of kindness. If anything, it should make the rest of us more aware of how lucky we are. But you could have just given me money. Why didn't you? Because you didn't ask for money. You asked to share food with your son. There's a dignity in that. I wanted to honor it. They talked for another hour. Oliver fell asleep against his mother's shoulder, exhausted from a full stomach and the stress of the past week. Grace told Ethan about her dreams of going back to school, of giving Oliver a better life. Ethan found himself sharing things he hadn't told anyone, about his wife, about the loneliness of success, about how sitting in this cafe every year was both the hardest and most important thing he did. She would have liked you, Ethan said. My wife. She always said, the measure of a person isn't what they have, it's what they do when they have nothing. You're raising a good kid with nothing but love and determination. That's remarkable. Grace wiped her eyes. He's everything. I just wish I could give him more. You're giving him what matters. He feels safe. He feels loved. That's more than a lot of wealthy kids get. When it was time to leave, Ethan did something impulsive. Grace, my company is always looking for good people. What's your field? I was in HR before Oliver was born. The new job I'm starting is just administrative work, but it pays enough for now. Ethan pulled out another business card. This is my personal assistant's number. Call her next week. We have an opening in our HR department. Better pay, better benefits, and it's a company that values family. No promises, but at least interview. Grace stared at the card. I can't accept this. This is too much. You've already done too much, okay? You're not accepting charity. You're accepting an opportunity to interview. What you do with that opportunity is up to you and your qualifications. But I have a feeling you're exactly the kind of person we need. Oliver woke up enough to give Ethan a sleepy hug goodbye. Thank you for sharing your fries, sir. You're nice. I hope you're not lonely anymore. 3 weeks later, Grace started work at Walsh Development Corporation. She was good at her job, so good that within 6 months she was promoted. Ethan found reasons to stop by the HR department. At first, just to see how she was settling in. Then, because he genuinely enjoyed talking to her daughter lover. Started calling him Mr. Ethan and drawing pictures for his office. Grace slowly stopped seeing him as a billionaire and started seeing him as just Ethan, a man who was kind and lonely and trying to figure out how to live again. A year after the day in the cafe, Ethan invited Grace and Oliver to dinner. Nothing fancy, just pizza at his house. As they sat on his back porch watching Oliver play in the yard, Grace reached over and took his hand. "You know what Oliver asked me yesterday?" she said. "He asked if Mr. Ethan could be his new dad. Not to replace his father, but to be part of our family like he offered to let us be part of his." Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "What did you tell him?" "I told him that was up to Mr. Ethan, but that I hoped so. Because somehow, a plate of fries led to the best thing that's happened to us since his father died." Ethan pulled her close. "My wife used to say that grace comes in unexpected packages. I think she was preparing me to meet you, to understand that family isn't about blood or money. It's about showing up, even when you're scared. It's about asking for fries when you're hungry and offering everything you have when someone else is." They were married 6 months later. Oliver was the ring bearer, and at the reception, he told everyone who would listen about how his mom had asked a stranger to share his fries, and found them both a family, because sometimes the most important moments in life come from the simplest acts of courage. Sometimes asking for help when you need it leads exactly where you're meant to be. If this story reminded you that vulnerability can lead to blessing, and that true wealth is measured in love, not dollars, please like, share, and subscribe. Comment below about a time when a simple act of kindness changed your life's direction. Your story might give someone else the courage to ask for help when they need it most.